Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. It's the football review show. It's myself, I'm Matthew Hurley, here to review all the weekend's football action. We're going to be looking at both games from the Ulster Senior Football Championship that definitely had a lot of talking points. Derry comfortably getting a win versus Fermanagh, booking themselves into the Ulster semi-finals. And elsewhere, Monaghan with a big surprise for most people. Maybe Monaghan fans always back themselves, but definitely a surprise from a neutral perspective to see Monaghan go to Tyrone and beat them, and not just beat them, but actually come from behind in the way that they did was very, very impressive. We'll be having a look at the Ladies Football National League as well. Of course, a couple of games there at the weekend. Obviously, Kerry winning the league title and Armagh winning Division 2 with Amy Mackin scoring a hat-trick inside 10 minutes. Probably one of the most impressive individual displays in Croke Park that we've ever seen, but we'll definitely get onto that a little bit later. Matthew, I suppose, how's things with yourself, first of all? A mental weekend once again, and yeah, like there was only 2 matches at the weekend in terms of the men's championship, but like so many talking points again.
Exactly. So, and thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, it was a mental day, especially yesterday with the Monaghan and Tyrone game. Scores everywhere. It was dramatics everywhere. It was a situation where Tyrone they played well, but they still lost, and you wouldn't have said that at the start of the game. Definitely, Derry, you had the Rory Gallagher stuff on the sideline. I don't know, did he actually milk it a small bit? Just going on like a madman on the sideline. And of course, it's the ladies' football as well, which was great to have them get their exposure in Croke Park. Great for the Cabogie players as well yesterday as well to get that exposure. So. Yeah, it was a great weekend despite having so little action. But then again, there's always next weekend. I think there's about 12 games next weekend. So big action to come.
Yeah, no, there is. There's definitely a lot of action on next week. Definitely a week to book off and definitely sit on the couch and watch all the football and hurling action. Test cases, Aaron, good to see you after the internet cut. Yeah, I was saying to Matthew off air there, it was gone until 10 o'clock. My electricity was gone. It was gone in the whole area actually, so it wasn't just me. But yeah, that was a little bit unusual to say the least. But then again, it was nice weather, so I took that as a sign from the gods to go to the pub and have a few and everything else. So we definitely did do that, in fairness. But yeah, like in terms of that Monaghan result, like I was even thinking about it like before we even go into the game and discuss the game. Like obviously so far in this year's championship, you've had Monaghan beating Tyrone somewhat against the odds. You've had New York beating Leitrim, which was a big surprise from a lot of people. Clare beating Cork, which I know some Cork fans and even yourself are saying probably wasn't that big of a shock, but I think from a neutral perspective, it probably was. And then obviously Roscommon beating Mayo. Like we've only probably had about 7 or 8, probably only had 4, 5, 6 big championship games, and 3 or 4 of them have already produced big shocks. Like it's shaping up to possibly be one of the most open championships of all time. And like we all remember 2010 and how mad that was. And I don't know if it's going to be just like that. You'll hope it is, and maybe Cork might win the All-Ireland. But I think at the same time, you're looking at it and thinking this has the potential to be one of the most open championship seasons of all time.
It's funny we say that, but then again, as you mentioned in the JMAP podcast earlier on the week, Dublin and Kerry are in action next weekend, so it's kind of going to be back to normality, isn't it? When Kerry hammer Tipperary and Dublin hammer Laois, and all the good feelings will be gone, unfortunately. But yeah, in all seriousness, like the first 2 weeks has been remarkable. In fairness, like I wouldn't have seen the Monaghan win. Like Tyrone, I would have backed for Ulster, to be honest with you, because they looked dribbling. And it was funny because Tyrone actually played well in the game against Monaghan, but still lost. And that's just a credit to Monaghan, how well they played. Clare and Cork, well, I could see why it was a shock, because Cork beat Clare twice in the Bragg Cup and the league, and you were thinking they'd beat them a third time, but didn't happen. And even the New York game, maybe in some quarter, like Darren Frehel mentioned on GA Goal commentary that time, it wasn't really a shock when you think about it. When you look at the two lineups, New York actually had probably better player for player than Leitrim. It was just about match practice, really. I don't think you have other shocks now. Maybe Roscommon beating Mayo is a big enough shock considering we were saying Mayo would win the All-Ireland a few weeks ago and how that's changed now. But there's also the arguments. Like someone actually pointed this out on my Instagram stories yesterday. Do Tyrone and Mayo actually care about the provincial championships? Because they have a second chance going into the All-Ireland series. So maybe it's a discussion for that. But in terms of shocks, it's been brilliant in the first 2 weeks. But I think it will come to an abrupt end once Kerry and Dublin are in action next weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is interesting, all right. Like when you look at some of the teams that are shaping up to be in pot 3, like you've got Mayo and Tyrone, like obviously in the group stages for the pot 3 sides, you've got Mayo and Tyrone obviously in there at the minute. Then you've also got the loser of Galway, Roscommon will be in there, and then the loser of Derry, Monaghan will most likely be in there as well. Like so, it's like it is shaping up to be like hugely competitive, and like the pot 3 sides, like they're going to take some beating. Like when you look at some of the teams that are going to be in there, like even as you said, like the fact that Mayo and Tyrone will avoid each other in a group stage now as well. Like it's a strange one, all right. I don't think either of the two sides go out and obviously lose on purpose or anything like that. I think that goes without saying, but there probably is that thing when Mayo supporters are waking up this morning and Tyrone supporters, Mayo supporters last week, and management and players, and they're thinking, you know, it's not the end of the world, and it's probably not as consequential as what it would be in previous seasons, because if this had been last year, for example, or even the year before, Mayo and Tyrone would be going into the same qualifier round. So it's possible they could have ended up playing each other. So it doesn't quite seem as consequential as what it was a few years ago anyways.
It doesn't really, but at the same time, like Mayo kind of had that feel about the consequences and stuff like that against Roscommon. But Tyrone yesterday, but I look at it, they wanted to win the game against Monaghan. Like it's a difficult one to think about, because when you look at two games in particular, Tyrone and Monaghan yesterday and Clare and Cork last weekend, it was more consequential, should I say, for Cork last weekend. But at the same time, it didn't seem like the same urge to go at Clare as Tyrone did with Monaghan yesterday. So like, it's a difficult one to judge, really. We'll get on to Tyrone and Monaghan in a minute. But at the same time, Monaghan want an Ulster title more than Tyrone, when you think about it, because Tyrone have won an Ulster title as recently as 2021. Monaghan haven't won an Ulster title in 8 years. So that's a long time for Monaghan football. So I would think Monaghan wanted it more yesterday, but that's not to say Tyrone didn't want it either. But they wanted it throughout the entire game. But even the last play, there's a lot of ifs, buts and maybes on social media about it, that Tyrone should have done better. Niall Margaret should have done better in the goal. For the Ryan O'Toole goal, I'll be more focusing on the finisher, Ryan O'Toole. But at the same time, if it was more consequential, as you said, if this was last year, how many men would Tyrone have put behind the ball for Ryan O'Toole's shot? Like, they might have put 5-6 men behind the ball, but because there was not much of a consequence afterwards, there was only 2, and maybe that's the difference in trying to win the game in Ulster or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and yeah, like even that late drama, obviously with the goal, the Ryan O'Toole goal. Like, I mean, obviously we're going to start. I mean, we've kind of already started discussing the game. So to remind people of the score, it was Tyrone 118, Monaghan 217, and as we were saying there, like a dramatic late goal from Ryan O'Toole, which I think for any GA neutrals who were watching the game, and for Monaghan supporters, Tyrone supporters, I mean, it was just an incredible finish to a game of Gaelic football. Like even for both sides, like they just both went for it. Both went for each other's throat. There wasn't a huge amount of sort of defensive football as what we maybe expected. It wasn't overly tactical. It was just two sides going at it, blow for blow, wanting to win the game. In the end, Monaghan won it, but even with those late chances from Tyrone, they could have ended up snatching a late goal themselves. So, like, this was one of those games that really could have went either way going down the home stretch.
It's funny because the end of the game probably epitomised the want from both teams. Like we mentioned, Tyrone putting 2 men behind the Ryan O'Toole shot. I think it was Conor Moyler and Niall Morgan definitely behind the shot for the Ryan O'Toole goal. But when you look at Monaghan, when Tyrone were chasing a goal, and I think Seamus mentioned on his podcast yesterday, Cleon J, the whole of Monaghan seemed to be inside their own box when Tyrone were trying to go for goal. And it just seemed that when Conor McManus, the forward, was the guy to come out with the ball afterwards. And to be honest, like, it just epitomised Monaghan just wanted it more in this game. But it seemed like Tyrone definitely wanted it in the first half when like Darragh Canavan, what a performance. Like 5 shots in the first half, five scores, 1-4, 100% shot accuracy, which was absolutely incredible. And he is a guy to watch in the championship this season. But Conor McManus was doing well down the other end. And when you look at Monaghan, actually, they weren't playing particularly well in the first half, but they stayed in the game. They had an 80% shot conversion rate, 8 shots converted out of 10. And you were thinking, okay, Tyrone are playing well, but Monaghan aren't playing that bad either. There's a chance here that Monaghan, if they boost their performance levels up just a little bit, they can go on and win this game. And they definitely did. As soon as Stephen O'Hanlon hit the back of the net, you're thinking, there's a game on here. And in fairness, like Kieran Duffy and Rory Gallagher, there was a time in the game when they were taking it to Tyrone. And I think Monaghan had a goal chance even before the Stephen O'Hanlon goal through Conor McManus. And that should have been the alarm bells for Tyrone ringing. But give credit to Tyrone. Like, even when O'Hanlon scored that goal, they still went ahead through points from Niall Stoughton and Darren McCurry. And you're thinking, Tyrone are seriously going to win this game. And then the thing at the end, and don't lie to me, Aaron, I think you'd be the same as me. You would have fisted the ball over the bar. I would have. I just would have taken the point. I know a lot of people would say you're not fun at parties, but at the same time, look, it'll be the safe option, extra time. And I think Monaghan would definitely would have gone into extra time with an extra zest in their step. But Ryan O'Toole, fair play to him. I wouldn't have gone for the goal, simply wouldn't have. But what a goal it was! What courage he showed, and I think it epitomised when I think it was the 2 Monaghan physios carrying him off the pitch. It was almost like a king in a throne, carrying him off. It was a brilliant moment, I have to say. And yeah, what a game, what a moment, and 2 sides that went for each other, as you said earlier on, and what a game to start off the championship season.
Yeah, I think the vast majority, even Monaghan fans, would probably say that, you know, in that scenario, you go for the points. Like, I don't think there has been too many scenarios really in the last couple of years where it is such a high pressure moment. And we've seen bigger chances. We've seen players run 1v1 on, with the goalkeeper and hand pass it over the bar. We've seen it in the opening 15 minutes of matches, and we've seen it in the final closing stages of matches. So, like, the fact that and it wasn't even a clear-cut goal opportunity. Like, there was a few Tyrone defenders that were covering a bit of the space. And, Noel Morgan, in fairness, one of the, best goalkeepers in the country, like, you'd fancy him, to get something on it. And he, it just went through him in the end. He was a little bit unlucky, in fairness. He was well positioned to make the save. It was just the sheer power sort of went through him into the back of the net. But yeah, like, and maybe that epitomizes Monaghan in some ways, because like they don't settle for less. Like, when everyone's writing them off and when everyone's saying that, they're going to go down and they're going to, eventually the good days are going to be over for Monaghan, they just find a way of shutting you up. And in many ways, I felt like that goal summed up Monaghan of the last 10 years, where it's like they're just going to keep going, keep flooding forward and take the big opportunities. And they'll take the risks, they'll take the chances to be successful, and more often than not, it works. And they are a model county for other counties to follow.
They are definitely the underdog county for counties to follow, because when you look at their, again, I think stats was a big thing actually yesterday. A lot of people, like even the commentators, were talking about it, and it was incredible. It's coming from a stats person. It was absolutely incredible to see that. Marty Morrissey just talking stats through his nose all day. But when you look at Monaghan, they had a 70 overall in the entire game, 76% shot conversion rate. For an underdog, that is incredible. I have to say, like, I know they took only 3 shots in the first half from play, and that was kind of worrying from a Monaghan point of view. But when you have players like Conor McManus, Jack McCarran, Micheál Bannigan, especially in the second half, Stephen O'Hanlon, they didn't perform particularly well in the first half, but when they were asked to stand up, they stood up, and fair play to them for that. And Rory Gallagher in that half as well, taking some brilliant kickouts. Kieran Duffy driving on the team from full back. Killian Lavelle, even in the first half when they were struggling, that Killian Lavelle flick away, I think it was from McCurry in the first half. Incredible, I have to say. Yeah. And like Monaghan, they were well deserved in their victory, even though Tyrone played well themselves. Monaghan deserved everything they got, and there is an argument now, if Monaghan performed to that level, if they performed to that level, the performance levels in the second half could even go further into the championship, into the semi-final, possibly an All-Ireland final with that performance. Because you look at the landscape of Gaelic football, there isn't great teams out there. Like we were saying, Mayo were All-Ireland favourites at the start of the season for a reason, because they were outplaying everybody else. Galway were another. Kerry are struggling badly. Dublin, we'll see once the players come back and see how they adjust to life being back. Tyrone, they beat Tyrone, one of the best teams on form yesterday. So why can't they go all the way, Monaghan? I genuinely believe Monaghan have definitely a chance to go further into the All-Ireland series. And it's just because I think the narrative is they're a small county, the size of Carlow, the size of Leitrim, and people just automatically assume they aren't going to be much of a threat to the bigger counties. But like they're better than Donegal, they're better than Cork, they're better than Tipperary, all the bigger counties around the country. So why can't they go on and win the All-Ireland? I'll tell you, this Monaghan team, they look pretty good. Defensively, goalkeeper Rory Gallagher, the midfield, Darren Hughes and Killian Lavelle definitely put the work in. Their half forward, their full forward line, I think they're absolutely excellent. And even besides Conor McManus, Hanlon, Bannigan, Jack McCarron, you even had Aaron Mulligan didn't even come on yesterday. Sean Jones came on in the latter stages. They're the up-and-coming players as well. So I'm telling you, Monaghan have definitely a bigger chance than any to win the All-Ireland, in my opinion. I think they have a really good chance after yesterday's performance.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tom says here, it was brilliant to see Conor McManus giving such a performance. We were all guilty of saying his best days were over, and yeah, like it's a solid point. I think we all, even looking at the basis of McManus's performances last year, you felt like, right, there does seem to be a bit of a slowdown, which naturally happens when you get to that age, and when he's been playing consistently year in year out through the league, through the championship, and he's been a top performer, probably has accumulated more minutes maybe than any other Monaghan footballer over the last 10 to 15 years. But look, fair play. What a performance. 9 points. Outstanding again. Like so many big points in big moments. Stepping up when his county needed him. And like when it's all said and done, I think he goes down as the greatest Monaghan footballer of all time. I don't know what you think. Like maybe some Monaghan supporters will be able to argue other players, and maybe I'm being a bit biased because I've seen him play firsthand for the last 10, 15 years. But what a sensational footballer. And again, like stepping up when your county needs him. And, we can all praise him for his technical ability, but his mentality, I think, is what separates him from a lot of other footballers as well.
To be honest with you, when you look at the whole history of Monaghan football, I'd probably have two being up there with McManus as being one of the best Monaghan players in history. And that is Tommy Freeman, who's another forward. To be honest, McManus is better than him. And Dick Clorkin, I suppose, as well. You have to put him into the conversation as well. To be honest, for longevity alone, you have to have McManus, because you remember with Dick Clorkin and Tommy Freeman, they used to be bench players towards the end of their career. McManus is 36 years of age now, and he's still one of Monaghan's main players. And that just epitomised them throughout. And he's an excellent footballer, definitely. Like, Aaron Mulligan has the potential, Sean Jones, but that's going to be in future years. For now, McManus is undoubtedly, I would say, the best Monaghan player in history. And it's not just because of recency bias. It's because when you break it down, like other than Freeman and Clorkin, I don't know, can you think of anybody yourself, Aaron? I can't, that had this much of an impact as Conor McManus has. And he's an incredible footballer. I think he's 11 shots yesterday. He converted 9. What a player he is. And he definitely, and it was really fitting. I think Marty Morrissey mentioned in commentary yesterday that he was the guy to come out with the ball at the end and save Monaghan's skin from conceding a late goal. And that's him all over. Like, he definitely throw his body in front of the line for Monaghan football. He's that kind of a character, and he's an incredible footballer as well. So for me, he definitely goes down as one of the best players in Monaghan history, and probably not even a debate.
Absolutely, no. And I think he goes down as one of the best forwards to ever play the game as well. Like, and I don't think that's an argument either. Like, and yeah, like I think you'd put Rory Gallagher probably in that conversation. If you wanted to go as far back as the last time they were in an All-Ireland final in 1930, I'm sure there was footballers back then who were excellent Monaghan footballers who might get in the conversation. But yeah, like a tremendous performance from him. Kid Cuddy says one of the best Monaghan games I've ever watched. Great mix of experience and youth, exciting times. And like that's the thing about Monaghan, is that like they are producing new players. Like Ryan O'Toole, championship debut, scores the winning goal. And not only that, brilliant performance from him. You've got Micheál Bannigan, who's come on the scene in the last couple of years. a few others that have been coming up from the under-20s. Like the Monaghan sort of production line is not slowing down. And for a county as small as them, like I think there's only 4 or 5 counties that have a less population than them in the entire island of Ireland. Like that's incredible. And the fact they keep producing these players, you know, like it's a sign that maybe they're not going to go anywhere. Like we all sort of envisaged at some point that because they are such a small county and the history hasn't always been there pre-2013, other than a spell in the 80s and the team that got to the 1930 All-Ireland final. Like, but maybe they're not going anywhere because they do keep producing.
They do. And I, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, no Monaghan fans, but I think he won 2 minor Ulster titles in a row. I think between 18 and 19, they definitely played Cork in the quarter-final after winning the Ulster title. So that was 1 year. I think Rory Gallagher, who played full forward yesterday against Tyrone, actually started that game against Cork as well. So they're coming through as well. And that's the main thing with Monaghan. Even the under 20 team in 2021 that got so close to Down. We talk about Down's youth. And look at Monaghan, they took that brilliant Down under 20 team to extra time in 2021. And that was after the unfortunate passing of Brendan O'Go-Duffick as well, who another excellent footballer, unfortunately, taken early. But when you look at Sean Jones, I'm sure was part of that team as well in under 20 level. Monaghan keep coming up year on year and year, and it's absolutely incredible to see from such a small county. And let's not forget as well, their hurlers, in my honest opinion, are their favourites for the Rory Gallagher Cup as well. And to go up to the Nicky Rackard Cup next season, that's incredible for Monaghan. A small enough county, I'd say, as you mentioned there, the 5th smallest county in the whole island. It's incredible. I'm telling you, this Monaghan team, or the Monaghan County Board, top to bottom, it deserves massive credit. Because what they're doing at the moment, it has to be followed by some other counties. And I think my county and Cork have to follow the Monaghan structure. The way they play football is incredible. The way they bring up youth is incredible. Like, you have to follow that structure. And this Monaghan team isn't going away by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to be here for a number of years, yes. And it's credit to the whole Monaghan County Board, and well done to them for yesterday. Brilliant performance, and maybe another Ulster title could be on the way to the Fermanagh County.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and you certainly give them a good shout going in against Derry, going into that Ulster semi-final. But yeah, like as you said, like they do keep producing, they do keep bringing through these top class players. I remember Aaron Mulligan was another one as well. I'm not totally sure what's happened with him the last couple of years, but I remember looked like a fantastic footballer, and maybe when he comes back into the side in a couple of years or whatever, like he might be another great addition as well. So they do have plenty of good talent. In fairness, Kid Cuddy says here, can we ask Matthew on leaving begging out of his team of the week? Has he seen sense now and put him in? Suppose controversial one. I suppose there was only one of 2 goalkeepers you could choose, and I'm guessing he went with Oran Lynch.
Well, because he got man of the match on the BBC, and that would have been even more harsher. That's just my opinion anyway. And in fairness, Niall Morgan was definitely up there for his first half performance. So even though there was little goalkeepers there, it was still a plethora of options to pick from. So it's not the big and the bad. It's just Lynch scored a point from play as well. Let's not forget that. We'll get on to that in a minute. But I think Lynch, and he set up, I think he set up a goal in the game against Fermanagh. So he definitely deserved a place in the team, in my opinion. But it's not to say that Rory Beggan had a bad performance at all. But yeah, I think maybe someone's disrespecting Oran Lynch there.
Yeah, like, and in fairness, yeah, like it was 2 top class goalkeeping performances. I actually think Noel Morgan did very well for Tyrone as well at times. Like it was just one of them things. Unfortunately, you could only pick one, and that was what you went with in the end. I suppose from a Tyrone perspective, like it is another setback. Like, I mean, I think this defeat was different to a lot of their other defeats earlier in the year. I think they still played well. Like they scored 118, which in most Ulster Championship games would win you the game. And like I think they were cruising in the first half. They were very comfortable. Lost the run of themselves maybe at the start of the second half. But like Monaghan played brilliant and they were outstanding. But where do you think maybe it went wrong for Tyrone in the second half?
It's hard to know. I think honestly they didn't expect the Monaghan onslaught. That's the only explanation really. Like in the first half they were exceptional. Like Darragh Canavan, Matty Donnelly, Darren McCurry, Conor McManus coming up. They were incredible Tyrone in the first half. And even in the second half, when Monaghan got that goal through Stephen O'Hanlon, they still fought a way back into the game, and there was still a fight in Tyrone, which, to be honest, cast your minds back to the Mayo game in the league, and Tyrone were absolutely gutless. They conceded 4 goals, and we were thinking, where does Tyrone football go from here? In this game, they played excellent, in my opinion, especially in the first half, but they still lost. That was the main thing for Tyrone. But maybe there's learnings from this. Maybe, like, I know Ryan O'Toole, from a Tyrone, it was a brilliant goal from Ryan O'Toole. Last paper over that, and incredible that he actually went for it. But I'd be questioning the Tyrone defence. Seamus Brady was the first to question it last night and play on GA. Check it out if you haven't already. And look, I slept on it and thought, okay, he maybe has a point here, because Niall Morgan was back, Conor McManus was back, and you were thinking, how has Ryan O'Toole been afforded that much space? You know, and you have to look at that from a Tyrone point of view. Compare that with Monaghan, who were putting everybody behind the ball for the last play of the game. And like, it's a hard one for Tyrone to swallow, because Canavan was superb. And to be honest, if Tyrone won the game, Canavan was nailed on man of the match. Like, you can't really complain with that. But ultimately, it is a loss, and like, they'll be third seeds now. But I think, like, can they take on a Kerry in the group stage? Kerry undercooked, let's not forget. Like, if they won't learn anything from Tipperary this weekend, and Clare they possibly will. So maybe they will. But at the same time, Tyrone are off the back of an incredibly tough game against Monaghan here. Kerry won't get a test. So I think Tyrone are in a good position to beat Kerry as anything. I think they might take a break now for a month. Kerry took a holiday. I think Mayo might have done the same after last week against Roscommon. So Tyrone, if they do the same after a big game against Monaghan, they'll take learnings from this and they'll go again. Like, let's not forget, from play yesterday, Tyrone won it, 113 to 2-7. So there's not problems in Tyrone. I just think it was that last play with Ryan O'Toole hitting that goal. That was the only cause of concern for Tyrone. But other than that, I still think Tyrone would still be a danger for anybody in the championship come June or July, possibly.
Yeah, Tom says here, no disrespect to Monaghan, but it seemed like Tyrone switched off at half time. And yeah, like, it is a fair point. Like, I think at the start of the second half, like, I think a lot of us probably switched off. Like, I was watching the game thinking, it looks like Tyrone are just going to coast home here. 5 points up at half time. You were thinking, a couple more points here, it's probably game set and match. Like, Monaghan's intensity that they brought in the second half was not there in the first half. So yeah, like, I think there might have been an element of complacency, but I think you made a great point there as well. Like, with the Ryan O'Toole goal, like, it was probably very un-Tyrone. Like, they lacked any real defensive structure, I felt, in the final 10-15 minutes. And usually that's something we praise Tyrone quite a lot with, is being able to see out games, being able to manage games as effectively as we've seen them do, most notably when they beat Mayo in that All-Ireland final 2 years ago. But this time around, like, yeah, I felt like maybe they kept attacking Monaghan, they kept playing on the front foot, and there wasn't an element of, like, because even when they went in front, I think they got a possession after that, and they tried to work an attack, lost the ball, and then Monaghan worked it up for the goal. But like, Tyrone of the old there would have kept the ball, would have slowed the game down. Maybe that was something they lacked, and maybe it was just in the moment with the pressure, with how intense the game was. And like, you can't knock a team for wanting to go and score and play the game as it should be played. But maybe it was just lacking that sort of, I don't know, game management that we would be so familiar with seeing from Tyrone that we didn't quite see yesterday going down the home stretch.
And even look at the league, like the game against Mayo definitely points off the page. You conceded 4 goals. And yes, Enda Hession's goal was superb that time, but you have to question the Tyrone defence in that situation too. And you have to question the Stephen O'Hanlon goal as well. How was he let in so easily on where he was in a situation with a one-on-one with Tyrone defender, and you're thinking a Tyrone defender might go in the inside or something like that, but O'Hanlon just went on the outside. No Tyrone defender to be seen back of the net, and that's a worrying time for Tyrone. Like, their attackers are doing well with Canavan. I think Moyler's back at the farm now. I think Matty Donnelly, he's coming back from injury, and he's doing absolutely incredible since then. Darren McCurry is an incredible forward. Con Kilpatrick is doing well in the attacking sense. Look, it's not a situation where Tyrone don't lack fight in the defence. Look, you even seen an incident yesterday with Hampsey and McNamee. I think McNamee himself gave a dig to Sean Jones, I think it was, towards the end of the game. And you're thinking, they're seriously up for the fight. But it's just the basics, maybe, defending. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not a situation like, let's just say, I'm thinking of a team that conceded a lot of goals. Thinking maybe Kerry the last few weeks, possibly the defence is open at sea. But Tyrone, it was just particular moments, really. It wasn't the entire game where they had to be switched on. And the Ryan O'Toole goal epitomised that. And you're thinking, look, in the heat of the moment, you're thinking, it's a brilliant goal from Ryan O'Toole. It's courageous. It's absolutely incredible stuff, and it's a magical moment. But you have to think of it after the game from a Tyrone point of view. And I think Dooher and Logan will have to speak to the defenders after that and not allow that to happen again. I think the blessing in disguise for Tyrone is it's only the Ulster Championship. It's only the Ulster Championship quarter-final. If this happens, let's say, all Ireland quarter-finals, you're gone. But it happens in the Ulster quarter-final where you have a second chance now, maybe even a third chance if you lose in the group stages. So, like, it's all not lost for Tyrone. So they'll have to show up to the defence and then let their attackers do the job. And I think they'll seriously be a threat. But if they don't fix up their defence, it could spell trouble for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, Porrick says here, no setback for Tyrone now, a 5-week break, including a probable training camp. Also, Championship takes a lot out of teams. Tyrone will be refreshed, sort out their half-forward line, and they will be fine. Yeah, I suppose like there's definitely no reason for panic from a Tyrone perspective. Like, I suppose similar to Mayo as well. Like, they're obviously going to go into that group stage, and no disrespect, like most likely whoever the pot two side is, Tyrone will probably fancy their chances of beating them. And same probably goes for Mayo. So you'd fancy Tyrone to get out of the group. Like, they only have to finish in the top 3. Like, so you'd fancy them to get out of that. That's more games, then into a preliminary round, and then go from there. So it's definitely not panic for Tyrone, just a setback. And look, it will hurt them, like losing at home to Monaghan. Like, Tyrone's record against Monaghan the last couple of years has been very good, in fairness, but it's definitely not a huge reason to panic just yet from a Tyrone perspective.
You say that about the record against Monaghan, though, but usually, as far as I can see it anyway, the record in Croke Park against Monaghan has been excellent. But let's not forget, in 2018, they lost in Healy Park, I think, with McManus scoring an absolute wonder score. So that's 2 losses in Healy Park now. So maybe up in Ulster, you'd argue that Monaghan have the upper hand. But once it gets to the nitty-gritty in Croke Park, it's Tyrone. And that's what maybe separates Tyrone and Monaghan over the last few seasons. Tyrone have it in them in the last few stages, and even against Kerry 3 years ago, to just do it when it matters. And that's why I think Tyrone will be a threat come down the summer. Like, whatever defensive issues they have, they definitely have the players to step up when counted. Whereas the likes of Monaghan and Roscommon, they might do it early on in the summer. But then once it gets nitty-gritty in Croke Park, they fall flat on their face. Like Roscommon, for example, are kind of similar to Monaghan. And look what happened to Roscommon last year against Clare in Croke Park. So I just think, once it comes to the nitty-gritty, I think Tyrone will be up there. I think Mayo will be up there. I still think, despite how badly Kerry are playing, I think Kerry will be up there as well. Dublin should be up there as well. So that's when it comes to the ball. Like, you even see that Derry are probably similar to Roscommon and Monaghan as well. And they fought flat under pressure against Galway last season. So, like, it takes a while to break that stranglehold from being a team that does it early on in the season, peaking too early, to then doing it in the stage when it matters. And I think Monaghan and Roscommon are kind of at that middle stage right now. I think Tyrone are still at that stage where they can turn it on in Croke Park when it matters. And that's why I think they'll still be a threat come the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Test case says, Aaron, big moment in the GAA. Fergal Horgan retired from inter-county referee. Yeah, maybe we might mention that maybe a little bit later on. Shawnee says championship format is a bit crazy. Top teams can get 5 or 6 weeks rest and then rejoin the fray refreshed. Meanwhile, the likes of Monaghan have to play Derry, Armagh. Will obviously play Donegal if, provided both of those 2 sides win their quarterfinals, Ulster quarterfinals. So yeah, it is a strange one, all right. And I think it's something we mentioned like previously, like last week. Like if Monaghan were to get beat by Derry, let's say, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's say that was to happen, then essentially Monaghan would have no reward for beating Tyrone, because they'd go into pot 3 and they'd basically be in the exact same stage in the All-Ireland as Tyrone. So yeah, like it's a little bit unusual. It's probably just a slight sort of grievance with the way the championship is structured. In fairness, Warren says, I'm so proud to see a performance like that from Monaghan. Tyrone are the team I take the greatest pleasure in beating. Used to be Cavan. Maybe it's not as big for Tyrone. One day, our day will come. There you go. Yeah, like I think.
Man of fingers.
Yeah, maybe so. I think, I think Tyrone are probably everyone's favourite rivals. Maybe definitely in Ulster anyway. I don't know from a Dublin perspective. I think Kerry are definitely our biggest rivals, but yeah, I think a lot of people do take pride in beating Tyrone. In fairness, I suppose the other quarter final was Fermanagh and Derry, and that finished Fermanagh 2-8, Derry 3-17. Definitely no shock on the cards here. Definitely no surprise. Very, very comfortable from a Derry perspective. Rory Gallagher was definitely loving it on the sideline, even against his former county that he played for and managed. But absolute no shame there from Rory Gallagher on the sideline. And from a Derry perspective, Shane McGuigan outstanding. Paul Cassidy getting a goal and a couple of points. So big win for Derry, and I suppose the first step in retaining the Ulster title.
I just wonder as well, does Gallagher actually put it on at this stage? Because, oh God, like it was just like you're facing Fermanagh. I'm sorry, Corey really was at the end of the game. Like he was celebrating like a madman in the first half when McGuigan and Cassidy gets those goals. But then in his interview on BBC Northern Ireland, he says Fermanagh wasn't really a test for us. We have bigger fish to fry. Like. Like, I mean, it's like he's a brilliant manager and all that, but just make up your mind, like, seriously. But yeah, brilliant win for Derry. It was expected. Like I thought Fermanagh would actually put up more of a chance than they did, but ultimately, it was interesting because I mentioned on my podcast, it'll be interesting to see what Fermanagh go with, what tactics they'll go with. Against Cavan, they went all defensive. Up until then, they went man for man. They went from man for man, and I knew from that stage on, when I heard that, game over, because they conceded 11 goals in 7 games in the league, and ultimately that's not good enough to beat a Derry team. And they were open at sea in the first half, and Derry just had full advantage of that. But a bit of a worrying sign for Derry. Glass goes off, then Shea Cullen scores 2 goals. That's a bit of a worrying sign. Like, you look at Conor Glass going off against Dublin, they struggled in Croke Park. McKay goes off against Cork, they could see the last minute goal. This is a worrying sign for Derry, I think. Like, this game was beyond doubt. There's no doubt about that. Fermanagh are just not up to the level. But if Derry wants to contain for All Irelands or Ulster titles, maybe, I think that's something they need to brush up. If they lose, like, okay, Glass went off for precaution, but what if he goes off injured against Monaghan? What's going to happen then? So I'm telling you, like, Derry need to fix that problem, and ASAP, in my opinion. But yeah, this game was over in the first half. Fermanagh didn't offer much really, other than Shea Cullen's 2 goals, and 2 goals from fullback. Definitely deserves a spot in team of the week, so fair play to him. But yeah, it wasn't a test at all for Derry. And the story was Gallagher celebrations, and yeah, that tells you all you need to know, really.
Yeah, Porrick says Derry to retain Ulster, then burned out for All Ireland group stages. Could be a fair point. I mean, like that does, like, because obviously we've seen Conor Glass go off against Dublin, as you said. Like, I wasn't 100% sure if he played this game. We've seen Chrissy McCaig obviously come back in, which is impressive from a Derry perspective. But yeah, looking at it and thinking that maybe could be Uri, because like their squad, although they've got a good couple of younger players, like under 20 lads that have sort of been making the breakthrough and coming off the bench, like, they are like 1 or 2 key injuries away from possibly, getting caught somewhere along the line. So yeah, like that probably is a bit of a worry. Although they do have Kieran McFell to come back in at some stage, most likely, depending on what the scenario is there. But yeah, were you surprised even to see Conor Glass start, considering he, it was 2 weeks ago, he had a bit of an injury against Dublin? Like, clearly there's obviously something not right there if he's coming off again versus Fermanagh. And that Monaghan game, I think, is in 2-3 weeks' time. So, like, the games are coming thick and fast. And, like, if Derry do win that, they then go into an Ulster final. Group stage is coming up. Like, Derry might still end up playing 7 or 8 games before the end of the year. So there's a long way to go here.
It was actually a surprise. I think you mentioned earlier that Kieran McFall wasn't brought on even, and that was a bit of a surprise considering he's just come back fresh from the States. But for Glass, I think it was just the fact that Fermanagh were just not up to the level, as Gallagher mentioned in the post-match interview, and he said, to hell with this, I'm taking him off. Simple as that. But Seamus Brady made a very good point as well, I think, recently. If Conor Glass was playing on one leg, Rory Gallagher was still playing. Look at what he did with the Glen lads at the start of the season. So he said he doesn't believe in rest. So that's just the kind of coach he is. But I'll take on Porrick's point there. I think they will be burnt out. If they keep playing players for meaningless kind of games, they will get burnt out. Like, let's watch now Kerry and Dublin, what teams they'll put out next weekend. I'll guarantee you Kerry will put out maybe a B team. They won't even play the Cliffords next weekend against Tipperary because they don't need to. Simple as that. And I don't think Derry probably needed Glass or McCaig against. Maybe they did for the first few minutes, but not for the last few minutes when the game was over. But that's my point with Derry. I think their squad is paper thin. Like if Glass gets injured, if McCaig gets injured, if McGuigan gets injured, even I don't know, and a decent enough player like Paul Cassidy or Ethan Doherty get injured, what happens then? And that's the big thing with Derry over the next few weeks. I just think Tyrone's squad is better. I think Monaghan's squad is actually better than Derry's. I think Mayo's squad is better. Galway's, Dublin's, Kerry's possibly. So, like, Derry will, if you're talking about Derry as All-Ireland contenders, I think their squad is way too thin to contend for an All-Ireland. That's just my honest opinion. I like Derry. I think they're a brilliant team. They've come up from the ashes and they've done absolutely superb. But I just think they need to work on depth more if they're going to contend for the All-Ireland, because they can't keep relying on Conor Glass or Christy McCaig or Shane McGuigan every single week. And McGuigan scored 2-5 himself the other day, 1-3 from play. Like, a lot of people were saying Niall Turner stood up in the league, but he only scored 1 point the other day against Fermanagh. So, like, you're thinking, who's going to stand up other than McGuigan in the big crunch games? No one did against Galway last season. So that's going to be big for Derry in the next few weeks to get a panel together and assemble them properly, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tom says I'm still not convinced about Derry being All-Ireland contenders. Yeah, like I think there's definitely a lot of questions they need to answer. In fairness, and the Croke Park voodoo I think is definitely one there. Like in terms of big games, like I think they have the potential to get to a semi-final with a decent draw, but I would be surprised to see them go beyond an All-Ireland semi-final. To be perfectly honest, especially like if injuries do build up as well. Like I think it definitely could be a bit of a problem. Joe says Derry shocked Monaghan with the intensity last year, but I'm not sure that will be the case this year. Monaghan should be ready for them. Yeah, like maybe we might mention that game in a few minutes' time. But you were mentioning Rory Gallagher's celebrations, obviously on the sideline, and obviously a lot of people, I suppose, giving out on Twitter about it, and that's disrespectful and everything else. Like with the fact that he, like, is he from Fermanagh? Was he born in Fermanagh? I'm not too sure, but I know he played for them and he managed them. So like, and you'd understand if he had a bit of a grievance against Donegal because of how things ended there, but like definitely shouldn't be any grievance towards Fermanagh, I'd imagine. Or maybe there is, I don't know, but like, yeah, like celebrating like a madman on the sidelines, as you said, like completely dismissive of Fermanagh in his post-match interview, saying like this wasn't a test whatsoever. Like, I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
I don't know, is it all for show, to be honest with you? Like, I know Derry, like, he's done an excellent job at Derry. In my opinion, he's one of the best coaches in the country. But in terms of respect, I think it was wrong, to be honest with you, Aaron. I wasn't really a fan of it. But like, I go back to Paddy O'Shea and Mick O'Dwyer facing off for Laois and Westmeath in Leinster final. They shook hands like men, and that was it. It was over and done with, and that was class in Gaelic football. But what Gallagher, I mean, I'm not a fan of it. I really aren't. Like, when you look at the scoreline in the end, Derry won this in the first half. There's no need to celebrate. You save all your energy to the Monaghan game in the semi-final. Don't use it all on this game. I mean, it's disrespectful. Like when you think about it, would Jack O'Connor do it against David Power next week? Would Desi Farrell do it against Laois next week? Like those, like you may question Jack O'Connor and Desi Farrell for their managerial styles, but you wouldn't question them about a bit of respect. That's just my honest opinion on it, and I just think it was wrong, to be honest with you. It was distasteful, and I think he was kind of wrong to do it. But then again, we don't know what went on behind the scenes with Fermanagh, because let's not forget, I think he only had 2-3 seasons with Fermanagh, and this day and age, that's pretty short, So, and let's not he got Fermanagh to an Ulster final, and you think, why would Fermanagh let him go all of a sudden after getting them to an Ulster final? And you have to think about that point of view as well. But at the same time, Fermanagh, they're a Division 3 team. Derry were always going to win the game. There was no need to celebrate like that. And maybe he should, not in managerial terms, because he's one of the best managers in the country, but in terms of respect, maybe she should learn more from Jack O'Connor and Desi Farrell, or maybe even Kevin McStay, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like the personality, and I like the celebrations, and I do like the energy he brings on the sideline. I think we need more managers like that. We need more people who bring excitement, who bring eyes and entertainment. And even anytime I've listened to any Rory Gallagher's interviews, he's a very, very fascinating man, and he comes out with some real great insights into the game that probably no one else can see. But yeah, I do think there is a line, and I think when you're going up against, I can understand celebrating like that when you're playing probably anyone else that you're not, you don't have any affiliation to, or you're playing Tyrone or one of the big sort of contenders. But when you're playing Fermanagh, like a county you're from, you played for, you managed, probably maybe a little bit over the top. But at the same time, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. He was very close to getting him up to the Division 1. And I do remember a lot of criticism for Fermanagh's style of play. I didn't really see it from inside the county as such. It was more so from outside Fermanagh. And even when I did an interview with Darren McGurn a couple of years ago, there always seemed to be great respect for Rory Gallagher, and he only spoke highly of him. So it's hard to really know sort of what's actually going on there. But maybe a word on Fermanagh before we move on. Obviously they go into the Tailteann Cup, 2 disappointing defeats in a row against Cavan and Derry, albeit Cavan and Derry probably just a slight level above Fermanagh. But going into the Tailteann Cup, would you give them a chance at maybe being a dark horse, or possibly even one of the favourites?
It's funny because last week talked to me about Fermanagh being favourites. I would have gone for Clare, but seeing as Cork lost to Clare and messed up that game completely, I think Clare will definitely beat Limerick. They should beat Limerick this weekend, so that'll count Clare out of the Tailteann Cup. I think they do have a chance. I honestly think they do. Let's not forget they beat Cavan in the league in Breffni Park, so that will stand to them. I think Fermanagh. I think. But again, they do have excellent players, as you mentioned there, going in your podcast, Darby Gurn, excellent footballer. Sean Quigley, if he comes back into the panel, he could be an excellent option off the bench. Aidan Breen's a very good player. McGolian's a very good player. Shea Cullen from full back. But my issue with Fermanagh is, whatever way they play, there's going to be cons with it. If they play defensive football against Cavan in that league final, their attack suffers. But if they play open, expansive football like they did against Derry or throughout the 7 games in the league, they kind of get mauled for conceding goals. They conceded, that's including the Derry game now, in the 7 games prior to the league final. That's 14 goals in 8 games. That's averaging maybe 2 goals a game. Fermanagh can't afford to keep conceding goals like that. They conceded 3 against Derry, 3 against Antrim. Antrim, to be honest with you, Antrim are the worst team in Ulster. They conceded 3 goals against them. And that's a worrying sign. They conceded 3 goals against Down. It's a worrying trend for Fermanagh, and I think they need a balance. They need to balance defence and attack. If they don't do that in the next few weeks, I don't think they'll have a chance to win the Tailteann Cup. In terms of getting to a semi-final, I think it's definitely up there. And it will do the players some confidence. Getting to Croke Park for 2 games this season will be brilliant for them. So, I think a semi-final is definitely up there, but they need to shore up defensively to get even further in the Tailteann Cup if they want to.
Yeah, and maybe going back to Joe Blogg's comment earlier here, where he was speaking about Monaghan should be ready for them. I mean, what do you think? In terms of that game, looking ahead, who would be the team you'd be looking towards at the minute? It's, from looking at it now, it's a very hard one to call, and again, could be a lot more late drama, and it could very well go the distance. This one,
it could even go to penalties. I think this is that good of a game. Jesus, it's a very tough one to call. At this early stage, I'd probably go for Derry, just because they're starting 15. If they get enough into them and they're starting 15, they could do it. But I think Monaghan need to up it in the first half, particularly from that first half performance against Tyrone to beat Derry. That's just my honest opinion on it. But if we're talking about benches, I think Monaghan have the upper hand there. I think that's a way that they could win the game if they bring on the likes of Aaron Mulligan, Sean Jones later on to run the legs off Derry. But in terms of starting 15s, you'd have to say Derry is much stronger. Like you look at the midfield, they have in Conor Glass and Brendan Rodgers, whereas Monaghan, you have Darren Hughes and Killian LaBelle, who did play well yesterday, to be fair to them. But you're coming up against two beasts in the middle of the field now. So that's going to be a big one. Chris McKaig, you'd have to imagine, will pick up McManus. So that probably takes his threat out. So that's going to be a big matchup there. So I would go Derry just at this early stage, but I wouldn't be surprised if Monaghan's bench makes the difference in 2 weeks' time.
Absolutely. I suppose we'll move on to some of the ladies' football action that took place yesterday, obviously in the or Saturday, actually, I should say, in the Ladies National Football League. I suppose starting off with the Division 1 final, it was Kerry 5-11, Galway 1-10. Kerry landing their first league title since 1991, 5 goals, very commanding performance, a game that really looked dead and buried after about 15 to 20 minutes, in all honesty. So Kerry football very much on the rise. I mean, the men's football obviously won the All-Ireland last year. The ladies obviously got to the All-Ireland final, fell to Meath, but still nonetheless, it was their first All-Ireland final in quite a long time. And here they are now winning a league title. So Kerry ladies football definitely on the rise.
It is too much of despair from both of us, Aaron. But like, to be fair to them, like, it was an incredible performance from Kerry. And maybe when you think about it, like, even getting to the All-Ireland final last year, a lot of people thought Kerry were just lucky to reach it. But this league final proved they're there to be shot at. They're an excellent side. Like, even when you look at the scores they had, Louise Niver-Hurtig and Sheer O'Shea didn't have their best games. But at the same time, like, Niamh Crowhor stood up and got 2-3 or 2-1. That was incredible. You know, and they have an incredible forward line. Like, Niamh Carpley steps up in big games. Anna Galvin, very good for wing forward. Lorraine Scanlon's very good. Kaylee Cronin, I think she must have got maybe 6 interceptions in that game against Galway, which was an incredible performance from full back. And even you have the likes of Louise Galvin, who's a legendary figure, come onto the pitch. She missed the majority of last year, but she's come back into the panel now. And to have that experience in the panel is definitely going to be big for Kerry going on down the line. And I suppose against Meath last year, they were shell-shocked in that All-Ireland final. Just Vicky Wall, Emma Duggan kind of took them to the cleaners in the second half. But you look at Meath now, Emma Murray's gone. I think the spark has gone out of that Meath team. Kerry are definitely the team to be shot at in this All-Ireland. Like, we thought it'd be Galway with their defence. Like, Galway had one of the best defences in the Ladies' League going into the game. They conceded 5 goals. And that just tells you Kerry's attack is absolutely lethal. And I think Kerry will be definitely up there. In terms of the All-Ireland at the end of the year, brilliant performance in Croke Park, and fair play to them. Let's not forget as well, they scored 4 goals against Mayo in last year's semi-final in Croke Park. So they're well able to hit the back of the net. They're a very good side in fairness, Kerry. I think Sheer O'Shea herself has scored 7 goals in this league campaign, which is incredible from her. And before we leave this game, in fairness, I think the Ladies Football Championships could be very competitive this year. Kerry, they look good in the league final, but I think there's definitely genuine contenders all over the landscape. You look at Dublin, if they get their act together, there's still a Carla Rowe, Hannah Tyrrell, all them players still available to them. Kate Sullivan, Queeve O'Connor are excellent up and coming forwards as well. Cork have more of a zest in them this year. They're going for more attacking football. Armagh, who we'll get on to later, have, of course, one of the best footballers in the country at the moment. Like, I'm thinking Galway, if they show up defensively, they might have a chance. They took Meath, a good Meath team, all the way last year. And let's not forget, Meath still have Emma Duggan and the likes of Orla Lally and Vicky Wall, as far as I know, in their ranks as well. So they'll still be a threat this season. So I think the Ladies Football Championships will be very competitive this year. Definitely one to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. And as we were saying there, their first league title since 1991. They haven't won an All-Ireland since 1993. So definitely seems to be a bit of a golden era about Kerry. And we see with all the great sides, like, sometimes it's just about that big moment, that big performance. And to get it, as you said, against a side that's done so well defensively so far this year. And like, from watching the game, like, the amount of chances they create as well, like, so many opportunities. They probably could have had more goals and even more points than what they actually finished up with. So like they're going to be a serious threat now going into that All-Ireland, with the fact that you said like Meath have probably regressed ever so slightly, just with some of the changes that have gone on there. Still plenty of teams in there that will fancy their chances. Dublin, Cork, Galway, possibly even Armagh, to name a few, and we'll get onto them a little bit later. But generally, from a Kerry perspective, like they must be going in counting their chickens going into this All-Ireland Championship.
They definitely are, and I mentioned on Seamus' podcast actually last night the big hoodoo for Kerry. Not beat like they beat Dublin quite comprehensively. They beat Galway comprehensively, Mayo, all them teams comprehensively in the league. But the one team they didn't beat was Cork, and they lost the Munster final to Cork last year. That's going to be the big thing for Kerry, beating their rivals. I think the game is definitely in Killarney this year, because I think it's going to be a double header with the men's final again this season. So, well, maybe not Killarney, because I don't think they have home and away agreement to Clare and Limerick. So imagine a Cork and Kerry Munster final in, say, the Gaelic rounds. Cork will definitely fancy their chances there. So look, Cork will definitely be a team to shoot at Kerry, but Kerry have this knack of scoring goals. And that's the big thing with this Kerry team. Louise Niver, Niamh Ní Croghair, Louise Shear Fauché is an excellent player. Niamh Carberry. You have Erica McLean coming off the bench from Foss, is a very good footballer as well. So, like, Kerry definitely have the players to challenge the big teams in Ireland. I definitely think they'll be up there come July. In terms of all our contenders, I think the team that is closest to Kerry at the moment, and you'll be delighted for me to say this, probably Dublin. When you look at the players they have, the levels they can go up on, with the likes of Carla Rowe, Hannah Tyrrell, Mick Bowen, of course, is still their manager. So there's still that, still level of consistency with them. So I still think Dublin are the closest runners to Kerry, but it will be a very, very competitive All-Ireland this year. And Kerry have to be the front runners after an incredible display last Saturday.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, and I suppose moving on from that, then we obviously had the Division 2 final, which was also a cracking game. It was Armagh 4-9, Laois 1-10, and 4 goals inside the opening 10 minutes, which is rare enough, in fairness. And Amy Mackin scoring a hat-trick as well. I mean, absolutely incredible stuff.
Unreal. She wouldn't have expected that in the first 10 minutes. 4 goals. I think it was 4 goals to no score in the first 10 minutes. And I think, what a game you're watching here. It was incredible, really. And I mentioned this to Seamus last night. So I don't know what you think about this yourself. Amy Mackin, I think, is the David Clifford version, or the David Clifford version of ladies football. What an incredible footballer! Like, she could go up so many levels. What a player she! Like, even back in 2020, you were thinking, I think she scored a hat-trick against Tyrone that night, one of the first nights back from lockdown, and you're thinking, what an incredible footballer this player is. Incredible player. And you're thinking, like, some of the scores she was getting against Laois last Saturday, they were out of this world. Incredible scores. Like, Aoife McCoy scored a goal as well, another player to watch come championship time as well for Armagh, scoring 1-2. And yeah, Armagh are definitely up there with All-Ireland contenders. And I made a comparison as well with Kerry football. The Clifford brothers. It's kind of the same with Armagh, with the Mackins. Blaheen was assisting so many chances as well in Croke Park last Saturday towards Amy as well. So there's a lot of resemblance there. And I think definitely Armagh are up there with all our contenders. But the thing is with Armagh, and it's a bit like Monaghan and Roscommon in the men's football, they don't seem to do it in the latter stages when it gets to the nitty-gritty. When you look at Armagh last year, Kerry Boston really in that quarter-final. Meath Boston the year before. Dublin got the job done the year before in the semi-final. Armagh have the players, there's no doubt about that, but it's about getting over the line for them, and it'd be interesting to see how they progress in the All-Ireland Championship. I think they won the Ulster Championship last year as well, so they'll be going for that this season as well. And as for Laois, obviously the first year of senior in a long time after winning the intermediate last year, and I think their attack is very good. Mo Nerney and Tyrone Fitzpatrick. Tyrone scored 4 points the other day for play. Excellent showing. But I think the defence is a main problem. They conceded 4 goals against Armagh. They conceded 8 goals against Westmeath during the league. I think it was 7 or 8 goals, which was something crazy. So they need to wrap up on defensive structures really for Laois to progress even further. They will find it tough in Leinster against Meath and Dublin. But again, like, they definitely have a chance if they get Tyrone and Mo Nerney in the right positions. But before we leave this game, it's kind of a shame when you think about it. The best 2 players on the field in this game, Amy Mackin and Aaron Fitzpatrick are being called up to AFLW. I said this on Play on GA last night. It's a real shame. Would you have expected this in the men's game? Would you expect David Clifford or Dermot Connolly to go down to Australia? Would you expect Shane McGuigan to go down to Australia? But it's kind of the best players in ladies football. Erica O'Shea is another one. Sinead Goldrick for Dublin. Would you have expected them to go down if they were playing men's football? That's my honest opinion on it. And it's a shame to see it that way. It's more a hindrance for clubs, to be honest with you, because they're missing for the club season while they're back for the inter-county season. But that kind of hinders the club season for LGFA, and that's going to be bad going down the line. But very good win for Armagh, and it's going to be interesting to see how these two progress in the senior championship this season.
Yeah, and I suppose you made some good points about Armagh. I think in some ways you can nearly compare them even to the men's side, Armagh, where they're sort of they're a bit of an up-and-coming side. They've been a team that we've been waiting for a few years now to click. And, it was Meath who obviously shocked, the GA community when they obviously went and won that All-Ireland. And it was one of the greatest sort of fairytale GA stories that we've ever seen. But for a while, you were looking at Armagh and sort of expecting that they were going to be the side that were going to do it. And it just hasn't quite clicked. So you are looking at them and looking at the players and some of the standards that they have set over the last couple of years for themselves, that you hope that this can be the year they make a bit of a breakthrough, because they definitely have the players to do so.
They definitely do. When you look at their players 1 to 15, like Anna Carr is probably one of the best goalkeepers in the country. Grace Ferguson and Clodagh McCambridge are two of the best defenders in the country. You've Blothy Mack in the midfield. You have, I don't know, is Evian Bailey going to come back into the team or not? Alex Clark is injured this year, which is a big loss for them. That's Jamie Clark's sister, so that's going to be a huge loss for Armagh this season. Aoife McCoy and Amy Mackin, of course, excellent forwards. Kelly Mallon didn't have her best game on Saturday, but she's definitely able to go up more levels. Niamh Reel came on the other day and got a point. Very good super sub to come on. So Armagh definitely have the players to go on and contest for the All-Ireland. Laura McConville at centre-back is another excellent footballer. Eve Lavery, very good. Like Catherine Marley. Like Armagh definitely have the players to go on and win the All-Ireland. And when you look at the landscape of, let's say, hurling, you look at Limerick, they're an incredible side. No one's going to stop them. But in terms of ladies football, I don't think there's an incredible side out there. I think that Meath team is kind of breaking up a small bit. With Eamon Murray gone, Dublin have kind of lost their mojo in the last few years, losing to Donegal last year was a prime example of that. Cork haven't won an All-Ireland since 2016. So it's definitely open for Armagh to go on and run for the All-Ireland this season. I think they have the players to definitely go on and win the All-Ireland. And of course, they have that diamond up front in Ian Mackin. They have a goal scorer in Ethan McCoy. So why can't they win the All-Ireland? I think Armagh definitely have a good chance to get the Brendan Martin Cup at the end of the year.
Absolutely. I suppose we'll just run through some comments here maybe before we finish up. Joe says, it's a myth that Tyrone have a better record against Monaghan. Your contributor is correct. Monaghan have lost the higher profile games in recent years. Yeah, like and I think that's the point though, isn't it? Like I think Tyrone have won the higher profile games. You think of Ulster finals, you think of the semi-final, obviously in the All-Ireland a couple of years ago, and obviously the last time Monaghan had beaten Tyrone in the championship prior to yesterday, they beat Tyrone in the quarterfinals, I think it was, and then went out and lost to Fermanagh. So that's been the problem. Like probably Monaghan's wins have probably gone unnoticed against Tyrone because they haven't had that much of an impact in the overall aspect of the season. But definitely, even when you look at the two meetings down the years, and when you look at some league meetings and the scores that have been between the two sides, like it's usually only been 1 or 2 points in it. In fairness, but there you go. Liam says, do you really think the top sides all have a better squad depth than Derry apart from Kerry? I think that's a bit unkind to Kerry. Yeah, no, I definitely would think that Kerry would have a better squad overall than Derry. So yeah, I'm not too sure if you said that, Matthew, but there you go. What's your thoughts on that?
Jeez, like my issue with Kerry, to be honest with you, is they're too reliant on the two lads up front in Clifford and O'Shea. That's all I'm saying. I just think, well, to be honest, like Derry are too reliant on Shane McGuigan, which I said as well. And I just think, like in terms of beating Derry, I think Kerry are definitely can beat Derry because Derry are too reliant on the main players. That if Conor Glass goes off, that's the end of them. But in terms of beating Dublin, in Dublin on form, I mean, in terms of beating Galway, in terms of beating Mayo, in terms of beating I don't know, I'm thinking of a team up in Ulster now. Maybe Kerry are better than most. Maybe Tyrone on their day. Kerry will struggle if Clifford and O'Shea aren't, if the mantle is taken off them, it isn't taken off them a small bit. I just think the likes of Tony Brosnan and Paul Gainey have to step up more for Kerry to go on and win the All-Ireland this year. If they don't, I think Kerry could struggle this season.
Yeah, like I think they do have the squad players there. I just think they probably haven't produced so far this year. And I think when the opportunities have come for them to come into the side and stake their claim, like it hasn't happened. But when you do look at the overall talent in Kerry and even some of the players that can't even get in their squad, like I think the players are there. It's probably just that the performances maybe haven't been there. Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4 with an earlier comment said, "Hi lads, I hear a lot of guys playing inter-county at the moment will be sitting uni exams in the middle of the white heat of championship. Very tough gig mentally to balance thoughts." Yeah, like I suppose it's a fair point, and especially with under 20 championships and everything else, minor championships obviously going on. Like I suppose, like it's the thing with the split season. It's better for some players probably, like obviously with the gap and more attention to club games and the fact that most players obviously will be able to now go on holidays in August and everything else, which they wouldn't have been able to do in previous years. But I suppose the counteract to that is obviously, yeah, like with obviously leaving cert and everything else sort of on the horizon, like that's the issue there.
Unless I forget, I think you mentioned that in the comments as well. Exam assignments. That's a big thing as well. Yeah. So I'm telling you, like it's something the GA need to fix. They tried to do this with the minor championship. That's why they initially put it down to under 17 because they not clash with the leaving cert. But then, in a way, can the GA actually win? Because if it was under 18, the leaving cert's the problem. The students can't concentrate on the leaving cert and I'd say an All-Ireland semi-final in Croke Park at the same time. But if it's under 17, it's too much pressure on the young players. So which is it? Which side do you want it on? So that's a difficult one for the GA to get that right in according to fans. That's a big thing for them to get right. But I think the under 20s is nearly a bigger championship, and I think like when you look at college assignments, it's a big thing. Usually the college assignments, I notice now being a college student, usually assignments are probably April, and the under 20 championships are happening now. And the under 20 finals are happening at the start of May. And that's normally the amount of time when assignments come in or multiple choice questions, things come in online as well. And that's not going to do well for players' mental health, really. They just don't have time to go out then. They don't have time to enjoy themselves. That's a big thing, and definitely a thing that the GA need to fix in the near future.
Yeah, definitely something they definitely need to look at as well. Like, and I think when you're having the whole expenses crisis that's kind of going on at the minute as well, like the cost of living and everything else, like I think it's definitely something that they really, really do need to look at. And Tesco said Matthew Hurley, Fergal Horgan retired as inter-county referee, Tipperary native. Yeah, I suppose like that was a story that obviously done the realms like during the week. I think he was saying that the standard isn't high enough. Would I be correct in saying that? And that's the reason why he's obviously decided to step away. So yeah, like I suppose there is a lack of referees across the country at the moment, and I suppose when you look at the amount of abuse that they're getting as well, like it probably is an issue that probably is not being spoken about enough. Like there is problems with referees at the minute, and when you're having mainstay referees, whether you like Fergal Horgan or not, like I mean he was there, he was there for most of the big games. So yeah, like that definitely seems to be a bit of an issue going forward, the lack of referees.
It is, yeah, and it's interesting because I interviewed a referee on my podcast, Brian Gavin. Check it out if you haven't already, and he spoke about interesting. Like he actually said that criticism isn't bad, to be honest with you. It make you drive on and do more, but abuse is a whole other issue. And that's the big thing. Like we were talking about, remember James Owens with Ait McCarthy, I think it was a few years ago now, and it was closer to the Ennis Road and them jokes and stuff like that. But James Owens kind of suffered, to be honest with you, after all that abuse that went towards his way. Look, he's human. It happens. Mistakes happen. And to be honest, I think people are kind of a bit hypocritical at the same time. The same people that say, "Oh, the referees need more support and they need." Need to not stop getting abuse. And then in my Instagram DMs and stuff, like, take about it last week. the Mayo Roscommon game. People were saying the referee was an absolute disgrace. I'm thinking, why are you saying those things? If you're probably one of the one people that says that referees need more respect. I mean, people need to balance it out a small bit and go one side or the other. But if you're going both sides, it's incredibly wrong. And in that game in particular, I don't think Mayo would have won the game either way. They lost by 4 points at the end. So there was no point in talking about the referee in that game. And maybe you might be slightly forgiven if it was a point in it. But if there's 4 points in it, if it's 2-3 more points or more, then you shouldn't talk about a referee. That should be out of the equation. You should talk about your own team's performance, and that should be that. And Fermanagh maybe is right, and it is a worry the referees aren't getting the respect they deserve, because they're definitely falling down. Like James Owens, I think he's gone off and maybe completely in big games. Fermanagh now retired, so you have to question, where are the referees in hurling? And you even go back to the incident in Roscommon last year where the referee got assaulted. Things go too far, those sorts of things will happen, and the referees will just reduce across the whole country. So it kind of has to stop. They need to have more respect towards referees. But I just think some fans on social media just don't have enough respect for referees, and that is the main problem.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, there definitely is a lot of double standards. I've seen even as well, you have it often with managers where they'll, I've seen even with Davy Fitz, doing campaigns to respect referees, but then at the same time giving out in interviews hugely about them. And look, sometimes they deserve criticism, but sometimes it does feel a bit, just a bit too much at times. But there you go. But I suppose before we finish up, then player of the week and moment of the week, what are you going for?
Yeah, player of the week, I'd probably go Conor McManus, even though he wasn't nominated by the GAA, which was kind of a disgrace, to be honest with you. But and then moment of the week, it has to be Ryan O'Toole's goal against Tyrone. Definitely an unbelievable moment. Definitely a contender for moment of the year. We were talking about this with Seamus last night. We've had 2 moments of the year contenders in 2 weeks. It's incredible, really, Aaron. It's an incredible championship so far.
No, it definitely is, and I feel like if it continues going like this, I think we might be in for some treat. But as you said, Dublin and Kerry are in action in their provincial championships next week, so that's probably when the fun will end. But yeah, no, I probably would have agreed with that. But I suppose outside of that, I think Amy Mackin's hat-trick inside 10 minutes, that, I think that has to be one of the moments of the week, and you could argue she was player of the week as well. In fairness, so maybe I might go with her for those 2 moments. But yeah, cheers anyone who obviously tuned in. If you could hit the like button and subscribe, be much appreciated. Closing in on 4,000 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, that would be absolutely brilliant. Make sure to share this out with your friends and family when you get a chance. And do check out Matthew's on podcast as well, the GA Statsman podcast, obviously there on Instagram as well. And we'll speak to you all soon. Cheers, Matthew, for coming on.
Thanks very much, Aaron.